If you hold a green card in the United States right now, stop whatever you're doing and listen very carefully, because what I'm about to tell you could be the difference between keeping your permanent resident status and watching years, sometimes decades, of hard work unravel faster than you ever thought possible. A major shift in U.S. immigration law has already taken effect quietly, without headlines loud enough to warn the people most affected. And here's the most dangerous part. The vast majority of green card holders have no idea this change even exists. By the time many people realize what's happening, it won't be a warning anymore. It will be a notice, a flag on their record, or a problem they can no longer undo. I don't say this lightly. This is not a rumor, not speculation, and not something that might happen someday. It is happening now, and it is changing how the government looks at every single permanent resident living in the United States. What makes this moment different from every immigration update you've heard before is that this change doesn't announce itself with letters or interviews. It doesn't wait politely for you to apply for citizenship. It doesn't show up years later during a routine process. It works quietly, continuously, and automatically in the background, evaluating behavior that used to be ignored, delayed, or overlooked. Things that once felt harmless. Missing an update, staying abroad a little too long, filing something late are no longer treated as small issues. They are now data points. And when enough of those data points stack up, the consequences can be immediate and severe. Before fear takes over, take a breath. This isn't about panic, it's about awareness. The reason this matters so much is because the system has fundamentally changed. How it decides who is truly maintaining permanent residence and who might be drifting away from it. For decades, the immigration system largely operated on trust. Once you received your green card, compliance was expected, but rarely verified unless you triggered a specific event, like applying for citizenship or returning from long travel abroad. That era is over today. Compliance is no longer something assumed. It's something tracked, and this is where people get caught off guard. Many green card holders believe that, as long as they haven't committed a serious crime, they're safe. Others assume that if immigration hasn't contacted them, everything must be fine. Some think that because they're planning to apply for citizenship soon, none of this applies to them anymore. Every one of those assumptions is dangerous. Under the new reality, the system no longer waits for you to come to it. It watches continuously, comparing records, timelines, and patterns in ways that didn't exist before. If you're watching this now, that puts you in a powerful position. Information is protection. The people who suffer the most from immigration changes are almost never the worst offenders. They're the ones who simply didn't know the rules had changed until the rules were enforced against them. In the next few minutes, you're going to understand exactly what changed, why the government implemented it, and how ordinary, well-intentioned green card holders are getting flagged without ever realizing they did anything wrong. And once you see how this system works, you'll understand why taking action early isn't optional anymore. It's essential. Hi, I'm Sofia, and for years, I've been closely tracking immigration policy changes that directly affect green card holders and immigrant families across the United States. I focus on cutting through confusion, fear, and misinformation so people can understand what's actually happening and protect their future before problems appear. And what I'm about to explain is one of the most important shifts I've seen, because it doesn't rely on dramatic announcements or sudden enforcement raids. It relies on quiet systems, digital records, and ongoing verification that most people don't even realize exists yet. If you're a permanent resident, this applies to you. Whether you've had your green card for 2 years or 20 years, whether you travel often or rarely leave your city, and whether you're planning to apply for citizenship soon or not at all, to understand why this change is so serious, you need to understand how the system used to work. For decades, the U.S. immigration system treated permanent residents as a largely passive status. Once you received your green card, you were expected to follow certain rules, maintain residence in the United States, file taxes as required, update your address, and avoid serious legal trouble. But enforcement of those rules was mostly delayed. Problems usually surfaced only at specific moments, like when you applied for citizenship, renewed your green card, or returned from a long trip abroad. Until then, many violations went unnoticed, untracked, or simply unaddressed. That created a false sense of security. People assumed that if no one was contacting them, everything must be fine. That assumption no longer holds. The government has now shifted from a delayed, trust-based model to an active verification-based system. Instead of waiting years to review your history all at once, immigration authorities can now monitor compliance as it happens. This means your status is no longer evaluated only at major milestones. It's evaluated continuously based on updated records, timelines, and patterns of behavior. The goal, according to officials, is to ensure that green cards are held by people who genuinely intend to make the United States their permanent home, but the practical result is that everyday actions now matter far more than they used to. Under the old system, someone could forget to update their address, file taxes late, or spend extended periods outside the country and face no immediate consequences. Those issues might sit quietly in the background for years. Under the new system, those same behaviors can generate automatic alerts. In centralized databases, these alerts don't mean punishment happens instantly, but they do mean your record begins to tell a story, and not always a flattering one. When multiple issues appear together, they can raise questions about whether you're truly maintaining permanent residence as required by law. This is where many green card holders get confused. They assume this change is about targeting people who intentionally break the law. In reality, the system doesn't evaluate intent first. It evaluates data. It looks at whether information is current, whether timelines align, whether obligations are being met consistently. A person who believes they're doing mostly everything right can still end up with a record that looks questionable on paper. And once that record exists, it becomes part of every future interaction with immigration authorities. The most important thing to understand is this: having a valid green card in your wallet is no longer enough. On its own, physical possession of the card does not guarantee that your status is secure. If the system believes your compliance is incomplete or outdated, permanent residence is now something that must be actively maintained, documented, and confirmed over time. In the next part, I'm going to explain the mechanism that makes all of this possible. The new system that now sits at the center of every green card holder's immigration, life, and why. Ignoring it is one of the biggest risks permanent residents face today. This is where the picture becomes very clear and, for many people, very uncomfortable under the new framework. The system doesn't just look at one mistake in isolation. It looks at patterns, it compares timelines. It checks consistency across different government records. Imagine two green card holders living in the same city. One of them files taxes every year on time, keeps their address updated, works steadily, and reports changes when they happen. Under the old system, that person looked fine. Under the new system, that person still looks fine. Nothing changes for them, but now imagine another green card holder. This person travels often, sometimes staying abroad 4 or 5 months at a time. They moved apartments last year, but never updated their address because nothing bad happened before. They filed taxes late once or twice, not because they were trying to avoid anything, but because life got busy. Maybe they changed jobs and didn't think it mattered to immigration. Under the old system, those details might never come together. Under the new system, they do. Each one of those actions creates a digital trail. Travel records show time spent outside the country. Address databases don't match. Employment information changes without explanation. Tax records don't line up cleanly with residency timelines. None of these things automatically mean someone loses their green card. But together, they raise a question the system is now designed to ask, much earlier than before: is this person truly maintaining permanent residence in the United States? And once that question appears on your record, everything that follows becomes more complicated. What catches people off guard is that most of these behaviors don't feel serious. They don't feel like violations. They feel like normal life. But immigration law has always been strict about permanent residence. The difference now is visibility. The system no longer waits years to notice gaps. It notices them as they happen. That's why people who believe they're safe are often the ones most exposed. They don't realize their record is quietly shifting from clean to questionable without a single warning letter or phone call. This isn't about punishing honest people. It's about documentation. The government wants proof, not explanations after the fact. When something looks inconsistent, the burden shifts to you to show that you've complied. And the later that question arises, the harder it becomes to fix. That's why understanding this early matters so much. Once you know how the system interprets everyday actions, you can avoid creating problems that are completely unnecessary. If this information is already helping you see your situation more clearly, take a moment to support this video by tapping the like button. It helps this reach other green card holders who may be at risk without realizing it. And if you want to stay ahead of changes like this, instead of finding out when it's too late, subscribing ensures you don't miss updates that could directly affect your status. Now let's talk about the tool that makes all of this possible, because this is where compliance officially begins, and where most green card holders will either protect themselves or get caught off guard. At the center of everything I've been explaining is a new online registration and verification system. that every green card holder will be required to use. This portal is no longer optional, and it's not just a one-time form you fill out and forget about. Think of it as your official living immigration record. It's where the government now expects your information to be accurate, current, and continuously confirmed. In the past, your green card itself was treated as the primary proof of your status. Now that physical card is only one piece of a much larger picture, what matters just as much, sometimes more, is what the system shows about your life in the United States. Right now, when you first register, you'll create a profile that represents you in the immigration system. This profile includes where you live, how you support yourself, who your immediate family members are, and how to contact you. But registration is only the starting point. The real change is what happens after. From that moment on, the system expects your profile to reflect reality. If something changes in your life, and your profile doesn't change with it, the system doesn't assume nothing happened. It assumes the record is incomplete. And incomplete records are exactly what trigger reviews. Under the new framework, this is where daily life starts to matter in ways it didn't before. Moving to a new apartment is no longer just a personal decision. It's an immigration-relevant event that must be documented. Changing jobs, starting a business, or becoming unemployed isn't just about income anymore. It becomes part of how the government evaluates whether you're maintaining lawful permanent residence. Planning a long trip abroad isn't just a travel decision, it's a data point that affects how your connection to the United States is measured. The portal exists to capture these changes as they happen, not months or years later. What surprises many people is how comprehensive this system is designed to be. It doesn't rely on a single source of information. It cross-checks what you report with other federal and state databases. That means inconsistencies stand out quickly. An address that doesn't match tax records, employment information that doesn't align with income filings, travel patterns that raise questions about where you truly live. None of this automatically means trouble, but it does mean scrutiny comes sooner, not later. The system is built to notice gaps, not ignore them. Now let me walk you through what you actually need to prepare for registration, because this is where small mistakes can cause unnecessary delays. For reviews first, you'll need your alien registration number, often called your number. This is the unique number assigned to you when you became a permanent resident, and it's printed on your green card. Without it, you cannot complete registration. If your card is lost, damaged, or expired, you need to deal with that immediately. Waiting until the last minute will only create stress and risk missing deadlines. Beyond that, the system requires your biographical information, exactly as it appears in government records. That means your full legal name, your date of birth, your country of birth, and your country of citizenship must match perfectly. Even small differences, like missing middle names or spelling variations, can trigger a review. Accuracy matters more than speed here. Taking extra time to double-check everything is one of the simplest ways to protect yourself. Your current physical address in the United States is another critical requirement. This must be where you actually live, not a mailing address, not a relative's home, and not a temporary workaround. Providing an address that doesn't reflect your true residence is considered a serious issue. If your housing situation is unstable or temporary, it's important to resolve that before registering. The system is designed to verify where you live, not just where you receive mail. Employment information is also required, and the system accounts for different situations. Whether you're employed, self-employed, unemployed, retired, or managing a household, there are categories for each. The key is honesty and clarity. The government wants to understand how you support yourself financially, because that has always been part of immigration law, even if it wasn't closely monitored before. What's changed is that this information is now centralized and reviewed continuously. Once you complete your initial registration, many people assume they're done. That assumption is where serious problems begin. Under the new rules, registration is not a one-time obligation. It's the entry point into an ongoing verification process that follows. Every year you hold a green card. At least once annually, you're required to log back into the system and confirm that all of your information is still accurate. If nothing has changed, you still need to confirm it. If something has changed, you must update it before submitting your verification. The system will send reminders as the deadline approaches, but those reminders are not a safety net. If you miss them, the responsibility doesn't shift to the government. It stays with you. Missing one annual verification doesn't immediately cancel your status, but it does place a flag on your record. That flag doesn't disappear quietly. It stays there, visible to immigration authorities, signaling potential non-compliance. If you miss 2 consecutive annual verifications, the system may classify your green card as potentially abandoned. At that point, you could receive a formal notice, requiring you to explain yourself in person. This is not a casual meeting. It's a situation where you're asked to prove that you're still meeting the obligations of permanent residence. What used to be a simple oversight now becomes evidence that can be used against you beyond annual verification. The system requires you to report certain life changes within 30 days of when they occur. This is the part that affects nearly everyone, and it's also the part most people underestimate. Address changes must be reported within 30 days of moving. This rule existed before, but enforcement was weak. Now it's automated. Your address in the portal is compared with other government records, and mismatches don't go unnoticed. If you've moved multiple times without updating your address, those gaps can suddenly become very visible. Employment changes fall under the same 30-day rule. Starting a new job, changing employers, becoming unemployed, shifting to part-time work, or starting a business all need to be reported from the government's perspective. This information matters because it relates to financial self-sufficiency, which has always been a requirement of permanent residents. The difference now is timing. Waiting months or years to explain employment changes is no longer acceptable under the new system. Any interaction with law enforcement must also be reported, even if it feels minor arrests. Charges and convictions must be disclosed, regardless of whether the case was dismissed later. Many green card holders assume that if something didn't lead to a conviction, it doesn't matter in immigration law. That assumption has always been risky. Under the new system, it's even riskier. The portal exists to ensure immigration authorities are informed immediately, not years later when memories fade and documents are harder to find. Travel outside the United States now requires special attention. Any trip that lasts more than 6 months, or is expected to last that long, should be reported in advance through the system. This creates an official record, showing that your travel was planned and temporary. Green card holders have always faced scrutiny over long absences, but now there's a formal way to document your intent to return. Failing to use that feature leaves room for doubt, and doubt is exactly what the system is designed to flag. Changes in marital status must also be reported within 30 days. Marriage, divorce, or the death of a spouse affects how your household is evaluated and how your record is interpreted. These details don't exist in isolation. They connect to other parts of your file, including dependents, financial responsibility, and future applications. What's important to understand is that none of these requirements are new. In spirit, what's new is enforcement. The system is no longer forgiving of silence. If something changes and the portal doesn't reflect it, the system assumes the record is incomplete, and incomplete records are no longer ignored. They're tracked, flagged, and reviewed. Now let's talk about timing, because this is where many green card holders will get caught off guard if they're not paying close attention. The new portal does not open and immediately punish everyone who isn't registered. On day 1, there is a rollout period followed by a grace window, and then a hard deadline. That structure sounds forgiving on paper, but in reality it's a trap for procrastination. The system is expected to launch soon, and once it does, there will be a limited grace period, during which registration is strongly encouraged, but not yet legally mandatory. After that window closes, registration becomes a requirement under immigration law, not a suggestion at that point. Failure to register is treated as non-compliance, and the consequences begin when you add up the timeline. Most green card holders will have only a few months from launch to complete registration. That might sound like plenty of time, but history tells a very different story. There are millions of permanent residents in the United States. Even if a fraction of them wait until the final weeks to act, government systems will be overwhelmed. Immigration websites are not known for handling heavy traffic smoothly. Pages freeze, sessions time out, uploads fail, and support lines become unreachable. Waiting until the last minute turns a simple administrative task into a high-stress gamble with your legal status. This is why early